Welcome to the special offering of Your Neighbor, a Priest, where we'll journey together each week exploring in roughly 5 minutes or less a different element of the Episcopal Church. This week, music. Music in the Episcopal Church is perhaps one of the pieces that can be the most unfamiliar, even more unfamiliar than our liturgy. For most of the music that's heard in the Episcopal Church doesn't exactly sound like what you hear on the radio, no matter the station. That can certainly be an intimidating point of accessing an Episcopal church, especially in a church where music is valued and is woven throughout the liturgy, wherever space is made for musical expression. The most common source of music in the Episcopal Church is our own church hymnal, which is a collection of church hymns, a word itself which designates that these songs are specifically of religious nature, that largely draws from the long tradition of English hymns that have been passed down across the generations, cementing their place in the liturgy for their beautiful prose, a poetry of lyrics mixing with tunes that invite us to sing as one unified choir. These hymns date from ancient church tradition and from the emergence of the English and early American churches in the 1600s through to the mid-20th century. These hymns are most often led by organ or piano. Many churches also make use of more modern musical resources put out by the church, including a collection of hymns written in modern times, inspired by the traditional English hymn structure, and a collection of music that celebrates the long, faithful history of African Americans in the Episcopal Church. All of this music is simply the ground upon which our music within the church is founded, but it doesn't have to end here. Many churches throughout the United States, and the Episcopal churches outside the United States in particular, utilize the musical gifts, talents, and culture of their specific community and region to celebrate in their worship through music that moves the soul. This has included the emergence of the use of bluegrass, folk and indie styles, jazz, gospel, choral music sung by choirs, and even the use of hip hop, EDM, and electronica in different specific ministry settings. An ever-growing area of music in the Episcopal Church is that of the contemplative traditions, simple tunes that are repeated multiple times, inviting us into a place of prayer and worship through song that channels our hearts and minds into worship. These contemporary contemplative offerings afford us a new way to engage in an ancient practice of connecting to God through music. Modern Christian praise music is likely the least common style at your average Episcopal church, drawing a clear distinction with our evangelical siblings. But even still, many individual parishes have fully embraced that sound and incorporated it into their worship as their musical identity. And it is quite common to hear with our youth at events and summer camp. It's also often utilized as a special musical offering in many parishes that otherwise primarily utilize the hymnal. So as you can see, music in the Episcopal Church all starts in the same place, but each respective parish is encouraged to explore that tradition, to find how it best speaks to the gathered body of Christ in that place. While this music is likely unfamiliar to someone who is new to the Episcopal Church and a liturgical church in general, it needn't scare one away, for just like the liturgy, once one learns the language, it opens the depth and power of the music that is being offered. Thank you for joining me this week as we've explored what music is and means for the Episcopal Church. I hope you'll join me next week as we explore the concept of the three-legged stool and how that analogy helps us seek and find the via media, or middle path. Until then, may God's blessing be with you, and know that my door is always open if you have any more questions. Just drop me an email at nic@sslv.org, and we can find a time to meet, share a cup of coffee or tea, and talk more about this church that I love.